Hey guys, it is February the 22nd, 2025, and I hope everybody's been having a wonderful weekend so far. Yesterday when I was replying to the comments from the video from the day before, someone had asked me what my thoughts and opinions are on non-alcoholic beers, and I replied to that individual and said, hey, it's just a little bit too much for me to discuss in a comment. So I said I would do a video about this today to go into a little bit more depth on why I don't think it's a great idea to fool around with non-alcoholic beers. And, do as you will. I'm not, saying what anybody has to do. It's just my opinion on the matter. And, once again, however you feel, do whatever works for you. Sobriety is not just a, one-way trip. It's not a one-lane road. I mean, people get to sobriety, stay sober, many different ways. And if consuming non-alcoholic beers works for you, go for it. I'm not here to bash anybody for what they do. I just want to share my opinion on why I think it's not a good idea because of my experience with it. And this just goes from my experience and the things that happened with me when I tried to use non-alcoholic beers as a method to get sober. And I guess where I'll start with this is that, I tried getting sober many, many times. So many times, I lost count. And about the furthest I'd ever get would be about a week. Now, I think I got one point where I got about 2 weeks in, but that was about the furthest I ever got. And one of the methods that I used often to try to get sober was using non-alcoholic beers. And what ended up happening with me with the non-alcoholic beers is that, I had told my wife I'm going to stop drinking, but I think that utilizing non-alcoholic beers helped me, in order to quit. It would be a nice substitute in order to fill that gap. And I started buying like really nice craft non-alcoholic beers, and there's a liquor store that was not far from my work that sold a huge variety of different non-alcoholic beers, and this was years ago too. They've got so many more selections now, but back then they still had quite a selection. There were some IPAs and all kinds of different kinds of beers, and I tried basically every single one of them, and spent a lot of money doing that too. But the caveat to that is that what I ended up doing, and I'm just coming on here to be completely honest with you guys and tell you what happened with me and why I think it's a bad idea. Because what happened with me was, my addiction, I'm always going to find a way. If there is a will, there's a way. And if there's a way for me to get intoxicated, I will find it. If there is a loophole, I'm going to jump through it. And that's what I do with my non-alcoholic beers. So I actually did stop drinking and started utilizing the non-alcoholic beers as a substitute. And I was drinking them when I'd get off work, got a few days in. And then what I decided to do one day, because I would come home from work and drink them around the house, like it was all good. My wife didn't care. I was drinking non-alcoholic beers, so it's A-okay, right? Well, my addicted mind, I decided that I wanted to start taking the non-alcoholic beers and I would pour it out, or I'd either save the bottles, wash them out, and then I would fill them back up with real booze. I even got to the point where I was mixing liquor and then pouring it into those beer bottles, putting the cap back on and sticking it in the fridge. And that's just the way my mind worked. So I would be, in the morning, my wife would leave to go to work, and, I would spend 30 minutes washing out old non-alcoholic beer bottles and then taking the beer that I had hidden in my vehicle. I would go get that out. I would fill those bottles back up, put the caps back on, try to make it look like they were new, stick them in the fridge, and I would leave them there for when I got off work. I would go to that extent to cover my tracks in order to be able to drink. And I would come home from work like everything's honky-dory. I've already had a couple of liquor drinks before I'd walk in the door, and then there I was. I've got my beer in the fridge, or, the one in the very back of the six-pack might have been, 90% vodka with a little splash of Sprite in there just to give it a little something, for flavor. And, I would drink the beers that were in there, and then I would, at the end of the night, grab that liquor drink that was in that bottle and have that, or, I would mix it up. But the fact of the matter is, and the reason I'm talking about this is that I found a way. Those non-alcoholic beers just gave me an avenue for me to abuse, and that's just the way I always worked. I just think that it opens up the door, and not to mention, there are quite a few non-alcoholic beers now that are zero. There's absolutely no alcohol in them. There's like, I'm not going to mention the names, but there are quite a few of them that are zero alcohol. But a majority of the non-alcoholic beers do have trace amounts of alcohol in them, and it's like 0.5% alcohol per volume. If you were to sit down and drink a whole 12-pack of those non-alcoholic beers, you're getting about the equivalent of, a full beer after you drink all of those beers in that 12-pack, which I think, could potentially trigger a relapse. You are getting alcohol in your body when you're doing that, and you might feel a little something from that. And that's just the honest God truth, especially if you have been sober for quite some time, and then you go and pound a 12-pack of non-alcoholic beer with 0.5%. I mean, you're going to get a little bit of alcohol in your body. And I think that, like I said, it just opens up a door. I just really do think that it's playing around with fire. Why go back and get that taste back, especially if you've gone any amount of time without drinking, and especially if it's been quite some time and you haven't had a beer or a non-alcoholic beer, it's been a year or something like that. Why go back to get that taste back for it again? If you haven't had a beer in quite some time, why go back? There's just no point in it. Drink the seltzer waters, the soda waters, or, a diet soda, or a water, a hot coffee, tea. I mean, there are so many other beverages out there that you could drink opposed to drinking a non-alcoholic beverage. And I don't have any issue myself with like a fake cocktail or something, like a soda water with a splash of cranberry with a twist of lime in a rocks glass or something. That's completely fine. I mean, there's no alcohol in it at all. It's just a drink. It just looks like it's a mixed drink, but it's not. The problem with the non-alcoholic beers is they come in a beer bottle. They taste and smell like beer. And, years ago, let's say 15, 20 years ago, they didn't taste too much like beer. They just didn't. A little bit, maybe tasted like water, like a soda water that's been flavored with a hint of beer in it. But these days, they taste exactly like beer. And that's just being honest. And there's one that comes in a green bottle. I drank it before. This was when I was still drinking and I was trying to quit. That one that comes in the green bottle, that's zero. You wouldn't be able to tell the difference. And that I'm being completely honest with you guys. If you set one of them down right beside the other, you covered up the labels, nobody knew what you were drinking, you wouldn't be able to tell the difference between the two. And once again, I think that that's just playing around with fire because it's giving you that taste back for it again. And that's what happened with me. I remember the day that I decided that I was going to try sneaking in alcohol into that non-alcoholic regimen that I was on. I was on I had gone out onto the river with my brother. My brother had a boat at the time, and we were going to go fishing. And I went out with him early in the morning, took a bunch of non-alcoholic beers out there with me, and we were on the boat, and I was drinking those, and I just was sitting in the sun on the river. It was a beautiful day. I got that taste. I was drinking those green ones that I was just talking about, and man, they tasted just like beer. And it triggered something in me. And on the way home from that trip, I stopped by the store and got a 12-pack of the real deal and then went back home and drank them. And it was game over from there. And that at that point is when I started taking those bottles, pouring out the non-alcoholic beer and pouring in the real stuff. And I would keep the same bottles over and over and over again and save the caps, fill them back up. It was a process. I'm sitting there with a funnel, pouring beer in there, having to wipe the beer bottles back down. I mean, the lengths that I was going to just in order to be able to sneak around a couple of beers was just ridiculous. And it's why I just think that it's just not a good idea. And like I said also, they do have trace amounts of alcohol in them. I just don't think it's a great idea. And, the thing is, too, is that if you have something like cirrhosis or, a fibrosis, hepatitis, something like that, and if you're looking, you're on the process of trying to get a liver transplant or something, they can test you for alcohol in your system. And if you come up positive, they might deny that liver transplant. why risk that just to get a little bit of a taste of a beer that's gonna, maybe trigger that thought? And I'm not saying that it necessarily will, but it potentially could. It is playing with fire. That's just my belief. And, once again, if that's something that works for you, that is completely fine. Please don't, kill me in the comments and come after me because I'm saying this. Like I said, this is, whatever you decide to do with your life is completely fine. I am not saying anything about what you do in your life. I'm just talking about myself and the things that I experience and why I don't think it's a great idea. But if it works for you, good. That's great. But if you haven't tried it and you've got some sobriety in your belt and you're thinking about it right now and you're thinking, oh man, I probably could have a 6-pack of one of those NA beers on, on this Saturday or tomorrow or whatever while I'm watching the game or whatever, just stick to something else. Drink a soda water, drink something else. Why play around with that and get that taste for it again? I just don't think it's a great idea, but like I said, that's just my opinion. I wanted to talk about that today because, like I said, somebody in the comments was asking me about it, and it was just way too much to share in a comment. But I think it's pretty valuable information for anybody out there that might be considering it. So, and that was my experience. Like I said, I found a way by drinking non-alcoholic beers to go back to drinking. I was hiding it plain sight, and nobody knew, and I never got caught. Never. I went on for quite some time. I might have gotten busted, but I don't remember. But the fact of the matter is I went on doing that for quite a while. And I just don't want to see anybody else open up that door and, accidentally step through it and not realizing what's going on and make a mistake that could potentially be devastating for their life. So anyway, guys, thank you so much for watching today. I really do appreciate it. And I hope that you guys have a great rest of your weekend. And until tomorrow, I will see y'all then. Y'all have a great rest of your day. Bye-bye.